All right, guys, the dust has only just settled after our next guest's last win, but he's already set to fight again when he takes on Volkan Oezdemir on October 27th, coming off two back-to-back brutal knockouts over Rashad Evans and Shogun, who are the toast of the town at 205. Anthony Lionheart Smith, welcome for the very first time to Submission Radio. How are you today, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm happy to be here talking with you guys.
Well, it's no secret that you've had a busy past few months. You're almost like the light heavyweight Donald Cerrone, taking as many fights as possible. How would you describe these last few months where you've had this sort of meteoric rise to the light heavyweight division?
It's been fun. You know, I've always talked about after each fight wanting a quick turnaround, and you know, when I'm uninjured, I want to get right back in there right away. So it's been a lot of fun to go back to back and really just keep getting back in there as quickly as I can. It's definitely busy. The landscape is definitely different. My life is a lot different right now. I mean, it's all good stuff, but I'm definitely busy. That's for sure.
Have you sort of been able to feel your star rising? Because I know to us, to analysts and fans of the sport, you've ascended very quickly through these light heavyweight rankings. Have you been able to feel that and those kinds of differences, or is it a case where you're just sort of in the gym grinding away and you don't really get time to reflect on that or notice it all?
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it. I can feel it through my social media presence is definitely a lot different. I get recognized a lot more, and people ask for a lot more pictures. That's for sure. So, and I get a different feel from the UFC. They want to keep pushing me out there, and they want to keep me in the octagon, which is definitely a welcome change for me. So it's cool. It's definitely, I'm just a regular guy. I grew up in small town Nebraska, and I still live in Omaha. So I try to keep my life as normal as possible, and I'm not running around trying to be a superstar or anything. I just love to fight, and I love what I do for a living, and I want to be a world champion. So that's kind of how I attack it. But the world around me is definitely treating me a little different. That's for sure.
Friend of the program, John Morgan, told us a funny story about in 2010 when you approached him at an airport and introduced yourself to him. Do you remember that moment?
I do. I remember that day.
What made you want to approach him?
Honestly, it's because I was a fan. Everyone in the MMA game knows who John Morgan is. He's one of the best in the business. He's fair to everybody. He's just out there, and I really wanted to meet him. I didn't go up there specifically just to kind of give him my spiel or whatever. The idea was I just wanted to meet him, and we were kind of both stuck in the airport at the same time. So I wanted to go up, and I wanted to meet the man, behind the articles, and the guy that's, at the time, the MMA landscape was different at that time. So, he was the dude that was, that all the MMA media people wanted to be. So I don't know. I just wanted to meet him, and he was a really cool guy, and we got talking about, my own goals, and I was really honest with him about how I felt about my career, and I guess at the time I didn't know how crazy he thought I was. I didn't know that he thought I was a basket case, but he hit it really well. If he did, he was really nice to me. We had a couple beers together and went our separate ways.
Yeah, he hides it really well for us as well. It's pretty crazy though. Sorry to jump in, Cass, because I was gonna say, you had the beer. You told him, okay, you're gonna cover my fights in this amount of time, and now you're here where he's covering your fights. What has been the sort of follow-up meeting with him like since you've become this new rising star in the light heavyweight division? Have you guys had more beers?
Yeah, a couple times. When I run into him, it's kind of like running into an old friend. I'm not heckling him for interviews for him, wanting him to interview me or anything like that. It's not like I've ever chased him around begging him to cover me or anything. He's one of the good guys in this landscape, in this sport. And I always look forward to running into him.
I was just wondering, at the time, the way he sort of describes it, you're on a 5-6 record. What was it that gave you that confidence, even back in those days, that's, for you to say, you will be covering me in the UFC one day?
I think where the confidence came from, I just felt like I was on that level, and I knew that I was like there was something missing, and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what I needed to change or what needed to happen, but I could feel it in training, and I could feel it in the fight. They're like, these guys that are beating me aren't any better than me. I'm not losing because I'm not good enough. I was losing because of small mistakes and maybe a little bit of the way I was approaching some of the situations, and it was just small pieces. It wasn't like I was going in there and just getting blown out of the water, and I wasn't being completely dominated. I didn't feel like I didn't belong in there with those guys. I just felt like I was missing a piece of something and I couldn't figure it out. And I just knew that someday, I've said this all along, someday when all this shit comes together and things start clicking and whatever's missing is there, everybody better watch out, because I've always felt like I just needed to get the right gears going the right direction, or the right pieces of the puzzle in the right places. And once they were there, there's nobody that's going to stop me. And I know that sounds crazy coming from a guy with 12 losses or whatever, but that's 12 times that I figured it out, or at least found a problem that needs fixed. That's how I approach it. That's how I look at my career. That's 12 times that I've sat in the back and had to rack my brain for months until the next fight to figure out what I did wrong, and I'm really proud of the fact that I've never made the same mistake twice.
If you had to sort of go back and see when the first time was that the correct gears were going into place, can you pinpoint what it was, or the moment, or that first sort of time that this kind of Anthony Smith run began and things sort of started falling into place?
I think each fight, a couple more things come together. Like I don't even think that I have it together yet. I can watch the Shogun fight and the Rashad Evans fight, and I could spend 10 minutes picking both of them apart about things I did wrong. So I don't think it's together yet, but I know that during I can go back and tell you each fight in my UFC career of something that I took away from that was positive, whether it was a win or a loss. But when things really started clicking, at least on my feet, was the Elvis Miocic fight. I got taken down, and when we got back to my feet, I don't know, it was one of those moments where things it made sense, and that's when I really took over in that fight and was able to get that big elbow knockout. And then I struggled a lot in the Andrew Sanchez fight, and that was one of the best things that ever happened to me was struggling through that first, second, and most of the third round, just trying to find that center in my brain, because everything was kind of spinning out of control, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get a hold of it. It was like you're falling and you can't figure out which way's up. So me having the ability to go through that whole fight, kind of feeling lost a little bit and not being able to figure out, kind of couldn't get my feet under me. And then finally being able to figure it out, and then it finally clicks, that was a really big fight for me. It wasn't necessarily that impressive. I wasn't scaring anybody in the division with a performance like that, but that was almost 15 minutes of just problem solving. So that was a good one for me, for sure.
It's funny how you said you weren't scaring any opponents, because it wasn't that long ago that you were sort of calling anyone and everyone out. After the Rashad fight, you were calling out Sam Alvey just because he was ranked and you wanted to crack those rankings. And then it wasn't long after that you couldn't find an opponent, and all of a sudden now you're fighting Volkan Oezdemir. Why do you think you're having an easier time now? Sort of, you've had this crazy rise. Why do you think you're having an easier time now finding opponents?
Well, I kind of got a target on my back now. Everyone in the division is kind of seeing the love that I'm getting from not only the fans, but also from the UFC. They're seeing that, it's kind of the same thing that I did to Shogun. I was such a big fan of his, and the same thing with Rashad. I wanted to take that shine. I wanted to get the shine that they had, and now I kind of got the shine on me a little bit, and so people want that. They want to be the guy to stop whatever train is rolling right now, and everyone wants to be the hero that stops the monster, and I think that's part of it. And now I'm ranked, so now no one really has an excuse not to fight me.
Just quickly on the side note, I loved how at the press conference you sort of explained to everybody that, hey, I'm a veteran and I've been doing this for a while and I'm not like a new fighter that just came out. And I just saw it in your eyes. You were like, I just want to explain to these media people who've never seen me before. I'm not like new to the sport. I've been doing this thing for a while. Talk to us a little bit about Volkan, because unlike your two previous opponents, this isn't a Hall of Famer or a guy that you grew up watching. Does it change anything going into this fight?
No, not really. I think that, I know people are going to say I'm crazy for saying this, but I think that Shogun probably would have beat Volkan, to be honest with you, just the way that their styles kind of match up with each other. Volkan's a guy that doesn't mind taking a step back, and obviously Shogun's the guy that's going to make sure that he does that. So, I don't really, to be honest with you, I haven't watched him fight. Like, I think I watched the Jimmy Manoa fight live, like when it happened, but I haven't gone back and watched any of his tape or any of his film. Actually, the OSP fight that when he got into the UFC on short notice, I actually got offered that fight.
Against Volkan or OSP?
Against OSP, but I was injured, so I wasn't able to take it. So then Volkan got it, and that's how he got signed. As far as I think that's how it worked. But, anyways, that's the only time I ever really. That's when I found out who he was, just because I seen that he's the one who took that fight. But I've never really paid much attention to him, and that's for no other reason other than, it's just not a guy that was on my radar. There wasn't a whole lot of 205ers that were on my radar at all. So, I mean, I'm sure eventually my coach will sit me down and we'll take a look at him, but he seemed like a nice guy. He's definitely confident. You can see it in his eyes that, he's confident going into this fight, and he may be coming off a loss, but he had 3 really good wins over some quality opponents. So he's absolutely going to be prepared, and I'm ready to rock and roll. It was cool that he wasn't an asshole or anything. I know that he went through some of that shit talking with DC a little bit, and to be honest with you, I'm just getting too old for that shit. I don't want to do it anymore. So it's cool to just go. It's cool to just do my job, and I know a lot of guys in this sport right now are doing the trash talking thing and drawing attention to them like that. I'm just a regular dude, and I just figure, if you want to, I think that I could draw a whole lot more people to me just by doing what I'm doing in the octagon. I think I have a pretty unique ability to make every single fight that I'm in exciting, and it's not something I have to think about. That's just naturally who I am. Just deep down in my soul, that's just the way that I want to fight, and I can't. I've tried to change it, and I just can't. So I don't think that I have to do anything extra other than just go in there and fight.
And I was going to say, he was really nice at the presser. He gave you some props. Someone asked him about you, and he's like, I think he's trying to steal my gimmick. No time. And no one laughed. Just absolutely I felt bad for him. I thought, that's a good joke, and he got no love for that. But you and him, I mean, you're both known for your violent finishes. I guess that OSP fight sort of went a lot longer, but generally speaking, he gets people pretty quickly out of there. You do the same thing in a very brutal fashion. Are you sort of expecting this one maybe to follow a similar path? I feel like if people are betting, they'd be like, yeah, this probably isn't going to last very long.
No, I don't imagine it's going to go to a decision at all. And I kind of did feel bad for him for his joke as well. But I think he's kind of in the same position as a lot of those media guys. Like, if you really go back and look at my record, I mean, I probably got over 20 first-round finishes. So, I mean, he's got this no-time gimmick, but I'm the original no time. I mean, if that's the way we want to look at it, you know what I mean? I got more first round finishes than he's got fights total. So, I don't imagine it's going to go to a decision. I think that I've seen a couple of the highlights of the DC fight, I guess. So I guess I lied to you earlier. I guess I did see a little bit of that, but I think it'll be similar to that. I don't think he likes pressure that much, and like I said, I don't know how to fight any other way. It's just go forward and punch people in the face. That's kind of what DC did to him from the little bit that I've seen. And I think that Volkan has a bright future ahead of him. I think that people like to compare us as far as our rise to the in the division and how it happened so quickly. Mm-hmm. But I think that I'm a lot more prepared for it than he is. I think that he got to the DC fight a little bit quickly and kind of ended up in deeper water than he expected. And I don't think that he had the experience to mentally deal with some of the problems that DC brings to the table. And I don't think that's a physical thing. I think that that's a mental thing. And I think that I've been through enough bad situations and I've been in enough tough spots that mentally I'm just going to be superior to him in there. There's nothing that he's going to throw at me that I haven't seen before. And I'm not necessarily 100% sure that he can say the same thing.
Mm. Well, it's interesting because he's ranked number 2, and Gustafson's already had his sort of shot against DC. So if you do win here, where do you think it kind of puts you in the division?
I think a finish over Oezdemir puts me in line for a title shot. And to be honest with you, I don't care who it is. I'm not here to challenge DC to a fight. You know, the only thing I challenge DC to do is do the right thing. I think that DC's had a really great career. I think that he's been a great champion. I think that he's a stand-up guy for the most part. I think that the UFC and the game as a whole has been good to him. And I expect that, I challenge him to return that back to the game and either sign on the line and put up your title or get out of my way and don't hold up my journey, because no one held up his, so that's what I challenge DC to. I don't really care who has the title. I don't care if it's vacant, and I don't care if I have to pick it up off the ground because he vacates it, or if I have to take it off his waist. It literally doesn't matter to me. I don't want to fight DC. I'm not chasing DC. I'm chasing the title, and whether I have to fight Gustafsson for the vacant title or I got to fight DC for it, it literally, I promise you, it makes no difference to me. I don't care. The person doesn't matter. So that's my goal is I have to finish Volkan Oezdemir first. A tough fight or a split decision win against a guy who wasn't even competitive for a second in a title fight that's not good enough for me. That's not good enough that won't make me feel confident standing in the middle of the octagon afterwards asking for something. If you want to ask for something, you need to make sure that you do something to deserve it. And that's why I asked for the Gustafsson fight. If I had a tough fight in a long, drawn-out split decision battle with Shogun, I would have kept my mouth shut. But, I think that I did enough to be able to be in a position to ask for that.
Just quickly, I mean, a lot of people sort of debate this all the time, Anthony, and I'm curious to see where your mind's on when it comes to this kind of topic. But who do you see as the true champion of the light heavyweight division? Is it Daniel Cormier? Because a lot of people still believe, although everything that he's gone through, John Jones is still sort of the reigning king in that division.
I think it's Daniel Cormier. I really do. I think that it's not just about what you do in the octagon. It's about what, I mean, I guess at the end of the day it is, but you have to follow the rules. No one debates the fact that John Jones definitely beat Daniel Cormier twice, but no one can say for sure that he did it twice without performance-enhancing drugs. And I just think that those two fights are a wash. And I know that, I don't think that he failed for the first one, but he did shortly afterwards. And, he's had a bunch of problems follow him. And honestly, I don't care what John Jones does in his personal time. I really don't. But when he comes into the octagon, I expect him to be clean like I expect everyone else to. And he just hasn't shown the ability to do that. So I think that Daniel Cormier is a true champion. And if you want to get deeper than that, I think that Gustafsson beat John Jones and Daniel Cormier beat Gustafsson. So, I mean, I know that that's a, kind of apples to oranges kind of comparison, but, in my head, it makes sense.
Yeah, no.
And you mentioned...
Sorry, you go.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned, Anthony, that obviously you want to have an opponent that doesn't cheat or doesn't cut corners. How do you feel about the fact that sort of Brock Lesnar is jumping the queue and might possibly be fighting Daniel? I mean, you're not a fan of the title being held up, but just because of his past and with the PEDs and stuff like that, how do you feel about him jumping the queue and getting this title shot with Daniel Cormier?
If Brock Lesnar hadn't have failed his last drug test, I wouldn't have a whole lot of room to stand on to say anything. But I don't think that it's fair. If it was my division that was happening in, I'd be pissed. But, I'm kind of in a biased position when it comes to the Brock Lesnar thing because Stipe is my dude, so I think Stipe deserves a rematch. I think that he's the greatest heavyweight champion we've ever had. I think that he carried that division on his back for a long time. And I think that Stipe had a big part of making that division as exciting as it was and bringing the heavyweights back to something that people wanted to watch, because for a long time, no one gave a shit about the heavyweights. So I think he raised that. I think he raised the bar, and then once you raise the bar, people try to match it, and that brings everybody's level up. So with that said, I think the Stipe deserves a rematch. But I don't blame Daniel for wanting the Brock Lesnar fight. You know, Chael talks a lot about on his podcast about, you know, Daniel necessarily Daniel deserves that. He deserves that big paycheck. He deserves that big moment, and that's hard to argue with. You know, I think that he probably does, but at the same time, you know, kind of at what cost? You know, what cost does that come to the integrity of the sport and you know, what's going on with Stipe?
Anthony, appreciate the time, and we'll let you go on in a moment. Just sort of piggybacking off that, sort of with you talking about Stipe bringing excitement back to the heavyweight division. Do you feel like you can sort of be that guy in the light heavyweight division? Because when you look at a lot of the guys at 205, a lot of them are sort of aging guys. They're legends. They're guys we've seen for a long time now, but we don't really know how much longer they have. And, you know, even the champion at the moment, Daniel Cormier himself, he's going to be gone around the corner. We don't know what's going on with John Jones. Do you feel like you can sort of be that guy that, I guess, brings excitement to the light heavyweight division and maybe carries the torch?
I mean, I want to be. I think that you need to lead by example, and I think that that's what Stipe has always done. You know, he's not a big trash talker. He's not a big talker in general. I mean, Stipe hates the media, and he makes that really clear. But he led by example, and he took the hardest fights, and they were exciting. They were, you know, big knockouts, and that's kind of what I want to do. I want everyone to have to raise their level. I want people to, you know, and I think that I've done that. I think that Shogun brought it because I don't think he had a choice. And I think he knew that in order to try to get to me, that he had to push the pace and he had to close the distance. And I think Rashad did the same thing. And I want people to chase me, but in order to chase me, you're going to have to raise your level, and you're going to have to be willing to get into. You have to be willing to throw yourself in the fire, and that's where I live. I don't have any problem throwing myself in the fire, and you know that's your Donald Cerrone's, that's your Carlos Condits, you know what I mean, your Robbie Lawler's, your Rory McDonald's. Like those are the guys that everyone in the division is chasing because they want to be in those kind of fights. But you got to be willing to step in that fire with them. So I want to be that guy that everybody knows. Like doesn't matter who I fight, doesn't matter what the style is, whether it's a stand-up battle with Volkan Oezdemir or a guy like Corey Anderson that could end up being a little bit of a boring fight. That I'm gonna raise the bar, and it's gonna be exciting. And that's what I want. I want everyone to know that whatever they paid to get into the venue, or whatever they paid for the pay-per-view, or whatever they had to do to watch the fights, that it's going to be worth the price when I'm fighting.
Wow, look at that. Now, before we wrap up, Anthony, we're just going to have a little bit of fun with you. We're going to get a couple of predictions. First prediction, let's just go off the wall here. Let's just change things up a little bit, change the topic. Massive fight happening in UFC 229. Everybody's talking about it. Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. We're getting some predictions from people. Let's have a little bit of fun here, and let's move out of your division and move away from this fight for just a second. Who do you think, if Anthony Smith had to bet his awesome bedroom that we can see in the background here on this fight, who do you believe is going to be winning it?
Oh man,
the bedroom's in place, so it's a tough one now.
I know, it makes it real tough. If I had to die on a hill with my prediction,
you have to die. On the hill. It could be on a flat surface.
Conor McGregor.
Well. Conor McGregor.
Wow.
Why is that?
I think that Khabib is very hittable. I think that overall Khabib is the better martial artist. I think he's the better mixed martial artist. But I think Conor's better with distance management, and he's accurate. And Khabib has shown that he's absolutely able to be hit. And people, you see it all the time. You ever seen those videos that they play of the guys that Conor fights right before they fight? You know, the lead up, talking about how, you know, they're going to beat him, and then afterwards they're all saying, "Man, I've just never been hit that hard before." You know, I think that Conor's just his timing and his speed and his accuracy is just on a different level, and his ability to read the distance. I just think if And I think to beat Conor on his feet, you'll have to be really defensively sound, and I think that that's probably the one place that Khabib is lacking.
All right, well, with that prediction out of the way, the most important one, you and Volkan Oezdemir on October 27th. It's going to be the 28th here in Australia and, of course, in New Zealand. What's the official prediction? Where does your heart lie, Anthony? And no one's dying on a hill in this one. The bedroom's not up for grabs.
Well, I think that it's another brutal finish. I really do. I think that our styles match up perfectly for me. I don't have Volkan's not shooting takedowns. This is not happening. So even if he watches this and decides, all right, I'm gonna take him down because he's not going to be expecting it, it doesn't matter, because Volkan doesn't have it in him. He doesn't. Not that he's not able, but just his style and his mentality doesn't have. Volkan's not shooting any takedowns. So with the threat of a takedown completely off the table, I don't think that there's anyone at 205 that's gonna win a striking battle with me.
Wow, there it is. You think it finishes early?
I do. I think the first round is gonna probably be a feeling out process. We're two guys that are swinging hammers. I don't think either one of us are gonna dive right in right away. I'd imagine there's going to be a feeling out process, and we're going to be checking each other's timing and speed and see what everything looks like. And I think that round 2, I think that we really start letting them fly.
There you go, guys. Like Drake said, it's going to go 0 to 100 real quick. Anthony Smith.
Real quick.
Versus Volkan Oezdemir on October 27th. It's going to be the 28th here in Australia and New Zealand. Follow the man on Twitter at LionheartSmith and, of course, on Instagram at Anthony Smith UFC. Anthony, really appreciate the time, man. This is not only an interview, this is a right deltoid workout. You've been holding your phone there for a while, so really appreciate it. Look out for Anthony's freaky right deltoid in this upcoming fight. The right hand's going to be even more powerful. Thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me on, and anytime you guys have a minute, I'll be more than happy to come and hang out.
Absolutely. We'll definitely get you on the future, man. Good luck.